Among the states, Georgia has stood out as one with a long history of support for early childhood care and education. In addition to the allocation of state lottery funds for our Universal Georgia Pre-K program, there are early learning standards, a guide and curriculum and program delivery in pre-K and related offerings, and we have a new quality rating and improvement system for early learning centers and programs. As Georgians, we have much to be proud of in terms of our national leadership and for making a concerted effort to provide an early and good start for so many young children. We are very fortunate today that we have all three of our candidates for governor here, and we look forward to hearing how they will work to continue raising the bar for Georgia's youngest learners. Each of the candidates will be asked the same 3 questions as the format has been before, and we will start the questions with Dr. Andrew Hunt, the Libertarian candidate. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hunt.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
It's nice to see you.
Well, Dr. Hunt, you get to start us off. You have a 2-minute opening statement that you can make about early childhood education and your vision for that.
Well, it comes actually from a testimonial. My parents founded the very first Montessori school ever in the state of Georgia. So I'm probably one of the oldest early childhood proteges that you'll come across. That brought me up through, completed my undergrad at Auburn in just over 3 years, completed my PhD at Georgia Tech in 3 years where I got a 4.0 and received an award for the best PhD across all of Georgia Tech that year. So it can work. I mean, it really pays back, okay? So you don't have to convince me. I'm in with you guys 100%, okay? And I just want to see how quickly we can implement it and how quickly and rapidly we can have it out there. And I believe in a variety of different ways. Not only do we know that 87% of the Georgians want quality care, affordable care in the early ages, but also 70% of Georgians, or just under that, want school choice. So we need to have a variety of early education types. Montessori is a great one, but there's many others too. And I believe in offering all those different varieties that the parents can choose among. We can look at a range of different ways of funding these, of course, and that's a big concern. Where do you get the money to help supplement that? And I really like the Arizona model of the educational savings accounts, where the money follows the child and the parents get to choose how to use that for best off for their lifestyles, to blend with their time, their work schedules, but also to bring forth all that the child has to offer. We really, really need to focus and give a hand up in these early years because it really cuts out all those handouts. And that's what we need to do. We need to have it where we have this 7-to-1 payback that we hear about sometimes, where you have it that you put in a little money early and it pays great dividends later on. In savings from us from taxpayer burdens later on, but also paying back into society with the great assets that we've developed.
Great. You did that precisely on time. That was
And
great.
I didn't practice it.
In 1995, Georgia became the very first state to offer a universal pre-K program for 4-year-olds focused on improving school readiness and funded by the Georgia Lottery. Demand for pre-K, though, is outpacing the lottery revenue at the current allocation, resulting in a waiting list of over 6,000 and threatening more cuts to the program's high-quality standards. Given this reality, how will you fund Georgia's pre-K program over the next 4 years?
We really have to have education be a key part in an area that we emphasize and we look at for the budget. And we hear different things from different people, like Carter's proposed setting money aside so it's sacred. That sounds like a good idea. Deal talks about charter schools and everything and opening things up. That's a good idea. But really, these are incremental changes, and we need a total transformation of our educational system. We have grown administration burdens by 7x while teachers have grown 2x. I say cut that back, have more independent schools, and then free up that money to put into these other programs. And that way we don't have to have more money to expand. We reallocate it and make it cost effective. Now, there's also people thinking about maybe horse race tracks and other things like that. I would say those should be like the lottery system, where they pay into our education. We need to have an offering of different ways and looking of ways that people don't mind funding into education. I would never buy the lottery ticket except it helps fund education, so I don't mind buying the lottery ticket. And the same with the horse racing. I think that we should have those type of things fund into our education programs and be innovative and different and just look at how we can really make this all cost effective.
A study conducted in 2009 found that 67% of infant and toddler classrooms were rated as low quality. For our youngest children, the lowest quality. In response, Georgia's quality rated and improvement system was established, and early learning centers across Georgia have embraced a systemic approach to assess, improve, and communicate the level of quality. What is your plan to continue improving the quality of Georgia's infant and toddler education programs?
Well, once again, I have from a 22-year-old all the way down to a 12-month-old. And my 12-month-old knows how to sit at a table and eat the food himself, and then bring his plate into the kitchen afterwards. And that's what you can achieve with the right type of schooling. And he does go to an early childhood daycare system because my wife's in the medical field, I'm in nanotechnology and running for governor. So we have to have that with our children. And we need to have that focus. Now, we need to have it that parents have better information as to the quality of the schools that are there so that they can do that choice and know and knowledgeably the performance that's coming out of those schools. So I'm able to better determine that as my wife, but other people have a harder time determining that. And so we need to have it very transparent and open, the ranking and ratings of these different things, because it really is important. These are the transformational years where the neurons are connecting. You're growing the brain, and we need to have it that it's not just a daycare, but it's an education system, because that's our future. We can have such great growth, and they can have such great lives if we have the right effort when they're young.
Well, you mentioned that both you and your wife are working, and that's an issue for a lot of family. In fact, economists say that child care costs should not exceed more than 10% of a family's annual gross income. However, according to Quality Care for Children, Georgia's working families, especially those that are living in larger urban areas, will spend at least 3 times that for the care of one infant. The high cost of child care often forces families to make decisions between care they can afford and the quality that we know that these children need. How do you plan to balance the high quality early education with both access and affordability?
I would extend these educational savings accounts into the early years of a child. So not only when they go into pre-K or kindergarten, but into the early years, because it is so important to the development of the child. So this money that would be available solely for educational purposes could be put to that end. So a child care center would actually be an educational center where they're learning and being taught, and the brain is being developed and wired correctly for growth. These are the kind of things we need to look at and how we need to make things different here in the state of Georgia. We can do it if we all put it together and you have people that think outside the box.
So in closing, if you could share your vision as governor, if you were elected, what your future for all of Georgia's children would look like as relates to early childhood.
It'll be a focal point. It was a focal point from my parents founding the first Montessori school to me, and I know what it did for me and how it developed my life. Other people have a hard time thinking about it, but Tiger Woods was swinging that golf club when he was 2 years old. And Manning's 2 boys were throwing footballs when they were that young. They were getting wired for their professions. And we need kids wired for a wide range of capabilities. And knowing how to complete a task and know the joy of learning. That's what we have to develop early on, the joy of learning. And that'll stay with them the rest of life. We can do that if we work together and have the right leadership. I will focus on this and make sure it gets done.
Thank you so much for being here with us
Thank you.
today. And thank you for rearranging your schedule. Joining me next is Senator Jason Carter. I believe he's here. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
You will be here. So I don't know how much you heard out there in the hallway,
I didn't hear anything.
but we were just talking about how Georgia has always kind of been a national leader in pre-K, and in 1995 became the first state to offer that universal pre-K. So we're going to let you start in thinking about the history of Georgia by giving your opening statement about what you see the future of Georgia as it relates to early childhood education.
Sure. Well, I think it's important for me and for you all to know that this is something that I've been thinking about and dealing with for many years. My mother is one of the foremost experts in a variety of aspects of early learning, and she's worked with the Annie E. Casey Foundation and others across the country to train states and to pay close attention. And so my respect for the investment in early education is deep-seated and real and very personal for me. I think one of the most important aspects of thinking about how we solve this problem, and you call it universal. Of course, there's not enough. There's wait lists, et cetera. But what I think we have to do is recognize that there is no dollar that gets spent by the state that's better than an investment in high-quality early learning. All of the long-term studies show that it makes real differences in both children's lives, but also in the economic health of a state. So this investment is real. It has to be protected. You all also saw, GEEARS and others, that several years ago when the governor planned to come in and change the lottery-funded programs, that the first thought was cut it to a half day, give a 30% cut in all of the pre-K teacher salaries. And that would have been a horrible disaster. And I stood with many of you in the state Senate and fought to ensure that we had a pre-K solution that was going to work. And what we did is, I still think that we went far too far, and the cuts were horrible. And 35% of the pre-K teachers left. We haven't seen the kind of ability to recruit those high-quality teachers back. And so my focus for the future is to ensure that we're managing the lottery-funded programs correctly, make sure that we're investing the maximum number of dollars that we can from that lottery fund into pre-K to ensure that that investment gets made and helps those children to close those achievement gaps when they get there, but also that sets us up for economic success down the road.
Well, given the demand for pre-K is outpacing the lottery revenue at the current allocation, and you may have heard that we have a waiting list of over 6,000 children, how would you fund Georgia's pre-K program over the next 4 years? Well,
the first thing we have to do is we have to be sure that we're managing the Lottery Corporation correctly. Right now, we're not doing that. The Lottery Corporation, we tolerated a lottery when it passed with the expectation that 35% of those lottery revenues would go to the Lottery for Education Fund. This year, it's about 25%. That's a giant hole, and every 0.5% is $18 million. When it is a real need to reform the lottery to increase the amount of money that they're putting into that Lottery for Education Fund, number one. Number two, even today, I mean, as my view, the reforms to the Lottery Corporation were devastating for a variety of reasons, but because we have, for example, 80,000 fewer HOPE recipients, we also have a giant reserve in the lottery that's about $286 million above the required reserve. So there's a good conservative reserve fund for cash flow, and then there's $286 million doing nothing. And if you think about what impact that would have on pre-K in this state, and if you look at it like the investment that it is, and you're truly looking for answers, you can manage that lottery fund in a way that would be very good and very healthy to ensure that we're investing additional money in pre-K.
Great. Well, one of the other issues that needs to be addressed in our state is that in 2009, a study found that 67% of infant-toddler classrooms were rated as low quality. In response to that issue, Georgia's Quality Rated and Improvement System was established, and early learning centers across Georgia have embraced a systemic approach to assess, improve, and communicate the level of quality that's needed in early childhood education. So what would be your plans to continue to improve the quality of Georgia's early learning programs?
I think, first of all, the quality rated system is a great one. And I think we need to continue to support it and improve it as we go forward. And you know, as a parent of a kindergartner, I am just recently out of the market for early childhood education, and it's incredibly helpful as consumers. But what we have to do, I think, the most important thing, is to ensure that we're getting the teacher workforce that we want. I mean, you can't treat these folks like babysitters. You have to know that they're highly qualified, well-trained people. One of the worst aspects of the governor's changes to pre-K is that they eliminated the payment differential for training and experience for high-quality early learning educators. We have to put that back. We have to make sure that we incentivize people who want to teach in pre-K and who have the qualifications, that we're getting the best possible teachers. I mean, I know that's what impacts my child's experience the most, but it's also data-wise what is demonstrated to make the biggest impact. So we've got to be sure that we're giving folks what they need to be good teachers, and then making sure that we can keep those really excellent teachers in those early learning environments.
So ideally, economists say that child care costs should not exceed more than 10% of a family's annual gross income. However, according to Quality Care for Children, Georgia's working families, especially those in urban areas, will spend at least 3 times that for the care of one infant. So what happens very often is that the high cost of child care forces parents to choose between what they can afford and the quality we know that our youngest learners need. How do you plan to balance high quality with expanding access and affordability for our working families?
Well, the first thing that we have to begin with, we all have to acknowledge that quality matters at this stage. All of the data demonstrates that high quality early learning drives changing outcomes. It gets people ready for kindergarten on the first day. It closes those achievement gaps, and it gives us all the benefits that were there. So quality does matter. And obviously access does too. I mean, the biggest thing that we see really is as people get poorer in our state, as we all know, the median income in our state is dropping faster than almost any other state. And as we get poorer as a state, which I think obviously we can change the economics and have a different discussion at a different time, but we're just getting fewer people going to getting any sort of early learning at all. And so there's no doubt we have to increase and expand that access and make sure that it's high quality. The difficulty there is how to pay for it, of course. And what I believe is, number one, we have to manage that lottery corporation appropriately. We have to ensure that we're investing it. And then we have to look through and see from an education standpoint and from a budgeting standpoint whether we're using our education dollars as well as we possibly can. I've called for massive reforms in how we budget for education, and I think as part of that, we should explore what it is that we need to have successful students in our schools, and obviously going younger and younger is one way to change educational outcomes for everyone.
Well, in conclusion, you have 1 minute to address the audience and the larger audience out there as well to share your vision for the future around early childhood education.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the work that GEEAR does and so many of you. I just want you to know that this issue for me is an important one. And I believe that if you have a government that is looking for answers and recognizes that when we use these resources, we're making an investment in the future, then you'll look at those resources differently. I think that you sometimes run into with the current administration the idea, and much of what's happening at the agency level is going well, but the overall vision for the state is that we have to continue to cut and cut and cut, and that every cut is good. Well, that's just not true. We have to make sure that we're properly investing. The best way to be conservative, the best way to have the kind of economy and the kind of community that we want is to use our resources wisely. So leaving money laying around when it could be doing good work for our economy doesn't make sense, and doing things outside of the early education time without recognizing that this is the best investment we can make does a disservice to the future. So I'm excited to charge forward on those issues. I'm excited to do it with many of you whom I've worked with over the last several years, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about this.
Thank you for being here
Likewise.
with us today.
Thank
Good
you.
luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As our final candidate today, I am very pleased to now welcome to the stage our governor, Governor Nathan Deal. I think he's in the hallway.
Okay, where you want me to go?
And First Lady Sandra Deal as well.
Thank you. How are you?
Governor, good to see you. You will be over here.
All right.
Well, Governor, I don't know if you're aware, it was 4 years and 1 week ago that we were on this stage together to kick off our very first summit, and you shared with us then your vision for early childhood education, and we're going to start off our questions with you with a 2-minute opening statement as you share your vision for the next 4 years.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to be with you again today. 4 years has gone by in a relatively short time. I've lived up to the promises that I made you on that first occasion 4 years ago. One of the issues that you were interested in is to have a quality rating system for our early childhood facilities. And we instituted that the first year I was in office in 2011, and we are very pleased at the progress that has been made there. Some 30% of all the providers are now a part of the quality rated system. As you may know, we have just recently been awarded an Early Childhood Challenge Grant as a part of the Race to the Top program. And one of the things that we have promised as a result of getting that grant is that by 2017, when the grant expires, that we will have 100% of our providers enrolled in and participating in our quality rating system. So we're very pleased with the progress we've made there. We also have recognized that we need to continue to have quality teachers, and part of the money that we have raised and will continue to have available to us will be used to incentivize those instructors in those classrooms to go back and get even higher professional degrees. And we will give them subsidies as a result of their being willing to do so. We think that's going to continue to be one of the better things that we can do to incentivize participation and also to increase the quality of the instruction. We are currently at about 60% of all 4-year-olds are enrolled in our pre-K programs. That's, I understand, we're one of the 2 highest states in the country in terms of that participation rate. And we will continue to emphasize the importance of that particular program. We know the results are very positive. We've had the University of North Carolina has done a study now for the last 2 years, and it has definitely indicated that we are preparing students in a much better fashion to be successful in the classroom. And if they are there successful, they're more likely to be able to get a high school diploma.
Great, thank you. Well, in 1995, as you probably remember, Georgia became the first state to offer universal preschool for 4-year-olds, which was focused on improving school readiness and is funded by the Georgia Lottery. However, demand for pre-K is outpacing lottery revenue at the current allocation, resulting in a waiting list of over 6,000 and threatening cuts to the program's high-quality standards that you mentioned and have worked for. Given this reality, how will you fund Georgia's pre-K program over the next 4 years?
Well, as you know, it is one of the 3 components of our HOPE program. It is the early stages of it. I believe that we will continue to have revenue that is coming from our lottery proceeds. We have seen the highest return for education this past year, some $945 million, the highest total that we've ever had for the lottery that has been dedicated to education. And that will continue to, of course, help us with the pre-K program. Based on the surveys that you have done and the studies that you've provided me with, it appears that people are willing to put even more money into that. That is certainly something that I believe we should take up and discuss. I intend to have a very thorough evaluation in a comprehensive fashion of how we deal with education, not just in pre-K, but all across the board. We still have too many dropouts of our schools. We have too many children who are not reading at third grade level by the time they leave the third grade. I believe it takes a comprehensive review, and that will include pre-K.
Well, in 2009, one of the things that UNC Chapel Hill also found was that 67% of infant-toddler classrooms were rated as low quality. In response, you helped establish Georgia's quality rated and improvement system, and early learning centers across Georgia have embraced a systemic approach to communicate and improve the level of quality that's needed in early education. What is your plan to help continue to improve the quality of these programs? What do you see going forward for the quality rated system?
Well, first of all, it sometimes takes incentives to get people to participate and to be able to raise the quality. As you may know, one of the things that we're doing is that we have put in place a program whereby we are allocating in 5 of the early education improvement zones. I forget the acronym for that one. It's something to do with 3Z, et cetera. My wife Sandra kicked it off just 10 days ago over in Clark County. We've identified 5 zones in our state, 4 zones, Bibb County, Clark County, a northern zone of 5 counties and a southern zone of 5 counties. And we're going to be putting additional revenue resources into that. We have just today applied for a new grant for additional funding to help us in these early years. We are doing, I think, the things that need to be done. In order to increase the capability of teachers, it is one of the areas that I've identified in my high demand career initiative. Over the last 2 years, we've identified 7 areas of study that we have jobs available and not enough people that are qualified to take the jobs. One of those 7 areas is in early childhood education. And we will offer and are offering 100% tuition for anyone who will go to our technical schools and get the certifications and the degrees that are in that particular area, along with the 6 others that we currently have. I think that's one of the ways that we can improve the quality of teachers. And as I indicated, the program will offer stipends for teachers who go back and get additional training and up their qualifications. So we have those funds available, and you know, we were only one of 6 states that got that early childhood, early learning challenge grant. Some $51.7 million is available to us over the next 4 years. And a good bit of that's going to be devoted to the quality rating system, because part of the conditions were that by 2017 we have 100% involvement in the quality rating system.
Right. So ideally, economists say that child care costs should not exceed more than 10% of a family's annual gross income. However, according to Quality Care for Children, here in Georgia, our working families, particularly those in the cities, will spend at least 3 times that for the care of one infant. And the result is that the high cost of child care often forces families to make decisions between care that they can actually afford and the care that would give the kids the high quality they need to enter into school ready to learn. So how do you plan to balance high quality early education with expanding access and affordability?
Well, that's one of the components of the program that we have in place, is that we will be able to incentivize families by giving them stipends to help offset the cost of quality care. And the amount of those stipends will depend on the rating of the agency that they choose for their child to attend. We believe that is one of the better ways of doing that, and that is part of the way that the revenue and the funding from these grants are going to be used.
Great. Well, Governor, you get the final say of all of our candidates. You have 1 minute to share your vision for early childhood education in the state of Georgia.
Well, I think we've come a long way in the 4 years that I've been governor. The quality rating system, I think, offers us great opportunity to continue to focus on quality care and to make sure that the providers are aware of the opportunities that they receive, and with the stipends that will be graduated based on the number of stars that a particular facility has, there will be even greater incentives for a family to choose those higher rated facilities. That, along with the 100% tuition for those who will get a degree, to serve in our early childhood education environments, our learning environments, plus the fact that we're going to continue to see the percentage of 4-year-olds who are eligible and are enrolled in our early learning continue to grow. As I said, we're one of the 2 highest states in the country, but 60% is a long way from where I want us to be. We're going to continue to try to incentivize that, and we look forward to working with you. Your organization has provided us with great insight by way of your polls and your studies, and those are the kinds of informational things that we need in order to hopefully get the General Assembly to agree with us as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, for being here.